The room was silent, not the normal kind of silence, not the kind you get before a meeting starts. This one felt arranged, like the air itself had been told to stay still. 7 figures sat across from me, perfectly aligned, perfectly still, and smiling. Not casually, not politely. Every single one of them wore the exact same smile, same angle, same tension, same timing. I stopped 2 steps inside the room. Something was wrong. This was supposed to be easy. First contact protocol. Species classification. Passive. No history of aggression, no recorded conflict, no resistance, a routine negotiation. That's what they told me. So why did it feel like I had just walked into something already in progress? I adjusted my posture, tried to stay professional, normal, predictable. One of them tilted its head, exactly 15 degrees, not more, not less. And then it spoke. "You're late." My breath caught for half a second. Late? That didn't make sense. We had arrived ahead of schedule. No delays, no deviations. I hadn't even introduced myself yet. "I think there's a mistake," I said, activating the translator. My voice sounded steady, too steady. The being didn't blink, didn't react, didn't hesitate. "You will say that first," it replied. A pause. Then another one, from the figure to its left. "Then you will ask about our resources." Another. "You will pretend not to be nervous." And then all of them, at the exact same time, tilted their heads. Same angle, same speed, same smile. And then they said together, "You will try to leave." My fingers twitched. Something cold slid down my spine. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't translation error. This was wrong. I hadn't said any of that, not yet. I took a slow breath, shifted my weight, changed my stance slightly, just enough to break pattern. One of them leaned forward. "You're adjusting now," it said softly. My heart skipped. No, that was coincidence. It had to be. I took a step to the side, a small one, unplanned. All 7 heads followed, at once, not tracking me, not reacting, anticipating. I felt it then, clear, sharp, unavoidable. They weren't listening. They already knew. I forced a small laugh. "All right, that's enough. Let's reset." No response, not even a flicker. I moved my hand slowly toward my communicator. Careful, subtle, controlled. I needed to step out, reassess, report. My fingers were inches away. Click. The door behind me sealed shut. I froze. No one had moved, no one had touched anything, and still locked. "They always do that," one of them said. My throat tightened. "Do what?" "Try to leave," it answered. A beat. Then another voice, quieter this time. "You lasted longer than most." Most? I didn't like that word. I didn't like anything about this. I stepped back, fully alert now. No more pretending. "Who else?" I asked. Silence. Then all the others who thought this was a first contact. Something inside me shifted. This wasn't a negotiation. This wasn't diplomacy. This was containment. And I had just walked in willingly. I scanned the room again, more carefully this time. That's when I noticed it. The walls, too smooth, too clean. No seams, no panels, no visible systems. Like the room wasn't built, but grown. My breathing slowed. Not from calm, from focus. Think, break pattern, test them. I turned suddenly, fast, sharp, and spoke without thinking. "Tell me something I won't do." For the first time, just for a fraction of a second, they hesitated. The smile stayed, but something underneath it shifted. Then one of them answered, "You already did." Silence. And in that silence, for the first time since I walked in, I realized something even worse. They weren't perfectly synchronized anymore, and that meant only one thing. I had just done something they didn't expect. The hesitation lasted less than a second, but I saw it, and more importantly, they knew I saw it. The room didn't change. The walls were still seamless, the air still heavy, the smiles still wrong. But something underneath it had cracked, just slightly, just enough. "You already did." The one in the center repeated it. Slower this time, more carefully, like it was adjusting. I took a step forward, deliberate, measured. None of them moved this time. That was new. Then tell me, I said, keeping my voice steady. What exactly did I do? Silence. Not the same silence as before. This one wasn't controlled. It was processing. One of them turned its head, not in sync, not perfectly aligned. A delay. Small, but real. You asked a question outside projection, it said. Projection. There it was, a crack in the system. So that's what this is, I muttered. You don't read minds. No response. You predict. Best the word hung in the air. And this time, they didn't finish my sentence, and I felt it. That shift again. Bigger now. You map behavior, I continued, pacing slowly. Patterns, probabilities, outcomes. Still nothing. But you need consistency. One of them blinked. First time. Predictability, I said. Another slight delay. And then, correct. There it was. Confirmation. My pulse steadied, not because I was safe, but because now I understood the game. You've been watching us, I said. Humans. Yes. For how long? A pause. Long enough to reduce deviation below acceptable thresholds. I almost laughed. Acceptable for who? No answer. Of course. I turned away from them, walked toward the wall, ran my fingers across the surface. Smooth, warm, almost alive. You said others came before me, I said. Yes, and they all tried to leave. And yes, and they failed. A longer pause this time. Yes, I nodded slowly, because they followed the pattern. Silence, not denial, not confirmation, just absence. That was enough. I exhaled, looked down at my hands, steady now. They asked questions in order, I said. They reacted how you expected. They tried to escape at the same point. Yes. And you stopped them. Yes. I turned back, but I didn't. And that same fractional hesitation again. You deviated. Yeah, I said quietly. And you didn't like that. The smile didn't change, but something behind it tightened. Deviation introduces instability. Good, I replied. That word landed harder than I expected. For the first time, they didn't respond immediately. I stepped closer, closer than before. If you can predict everything, I said, then why am I still here? Silence. Real silence. Not controlled, not scripted, uncertain. And that's when I realized something else. They weren't just studying us. They were containing us. Let me guess, I said. You don't stop people because they're dangerous. No reaction. You stop them because once they break your model. I leaned in slightly. You can't rebuild it fast enough. One of them stood up, abrupt. The others didn't follow. Another break, another flaw. Human behavior exceeds acceptable chaos limits, it said. There it was. Not strength, not intelligence. Chaos. I smiled. A real one this time. Yeah, I said. That sounds about right. The lights flickered, just once. But that was enough. Because systems don't flicker unless something is going wrong. And suddenly, for the first time since I entered that room, I wasn't the one being studied anymore. I was the problem. The word lingered in the air. Problem. Not soldier, not negotiator, not human. Problem. I let that sink in. Watched their reactions carefully. 3 of them were still perfectly still. 2 were slightly delayed. 1 hadn't moved at all since standing up. And the last one, the one in the center, was watching me differently now. Not predicting, observing. Good. That meant I had already broken something important. Now you built this place for containment, I said, turning slowly in place. Not diplomacy. No answer. But you didn't expect resistance. Silence. I smiled slightly. Not real resistance. The standing one took a step forward. Too fast. Too sharp. Another mistake. Human deviation must be reduced, it said. Must be. So this wasn't optional. You're not negotiating with us, I said. I looked directly at it. You're correcting us. A pause. Then, yes. There it was. No more pretending. I exhaled slowly. Let me guess, I continued. You find a species, study its behavior, map every possible decision. I gestured around the room. And then remove anything that doesn't fit. No response, which at this point was basically confirmation. I nodded to myself. Efficient, I said. Cold, predictable. That word again. Predictable. They didn't like that one. You call it stability, I went on. Order, balance. Still nothing. But what you're really doing, I stopped pacing, is control. The lights flickered again. Longer this time. The one standing took another step. Closer now. Control is necessary. No, I replied calmly. I met its gaze. Control is fragile. That hit. I saw it. Not in the face, not in the posture, in the delay. A fraction longer than before. You rely on patterns, I said, but patterns break. Not within acceptable limits. There it is again, I muttered. Acceptable. I shook my head. You built your entire system around predictability, I pointed at myself, and then you invited humans in. That time, 3 of them reacted. Too fast, too sharp, too emotional. Another crack. You are being stabilized, one of them said. Am I? I asked. I stepped closer, closer than I should have. No reaction, no defensive move. They didn't know what I would do. That was new. That's funny, I said quietly, because from where I'm standing, I leaned in slightly. You're the ones falling apart. The room shifted, not physically, but something in the air tightened. Pressure, like a system pushing back. Deviation threshold exceeded, one of them said. Another, recalibration required. Recalibration. I almost laughed. You don't fix chaos, I said. You adapt to it. No, immediate, sharp, wrong move. That was the first emotional response. Clear, undeniable. I straightened. There it is, I whispered. The center one stood up, slowly this time, controlled, but not perfectly. We will correct this, it said. Not observe, not analyze. Correct. I took a step back, not out of fear, out of strategy. Distance changes behavior. Let's see if they adapt. They didn't move. Good. You can't, I said. Silence. You can't correct something you don't understand. Another delay. Another flicker in the lights. You are understood. I tilted my head, mirroring them, deliberately. No, I said softly. You understand patterns. I paused. Then, you don't understand choice. That word hit harder than anything else so far. Choice. Because choice is unpredictable. Choice breaks systems. Choice creates chaos. And chaos cannot be contained. For the first time since this started, none of them spoke. Not immediately. Not together. Not at all. And in that silence, I knew something had shifted completely. They weren't ahead anymore. They were catching up. And that meant one thing. I wasn't trapped in here with them. They were trapped in here with me. They didn't move. That was the first thing I noticed. No synchronized head tilt, no immediate response, no perfect timing. Nothing. For the first time since I entered that room, they hesitated completely. Not a fraction of a second, not a delay. A full stop. Good. That meant I had done more than disrupt them. I had broken their flow. I took another step. Slow. Unpredictable. Still no reaction. You lost it, didn't you? I said quietly. One of them twitched, not visibly, but I saw it. A micro delay in posture correction. You can't see what comes next anymore. Silence. I smiled. Yeah, that's new for you. The one in the center finally spoke. You are outside projection. Its voice was different now. Less certain. Less precise. Yeah, I said. And you don't like that. No answer. Of course not. Because they didn't have one. I turned my back to them. The dangerous move. A stupid move. A completely human move. Still, nothing happened. I let out a slow breath. You know what your mistake was, I said, walking casually toward the wall. No response. You thought understanding behavior meant controlling it. I ran my hand across the surface again. Still warm, still smooth, still wrong. But behavior isn't the problem, I continued. I tapped the wall twice. Random rhythm, no pattern. It's what creates behavior. A pause. Choice. Behind me, a shift. Subtle. But there. You are a variable, one of them said. Not just a variable, I replied. I turned slowly. I'm the kind that breaks the equation. That landed. I saw it ripple through them. Not physically, systemically. Equations can be recalculated, the standing one said. Not this one, I answered. I stepped closer again. Fast this time. No warning. Two of them flinched. Flinched. That was instinct. That was not prediction. That was reaction. And that meant they were slipping. See that? I said, pointing lightly. That wasn't calculated. No answer. But they knew. You're adapting now, I continued, not predicting. Silence. That means you're behind. The lights flickered again. Longer. A low hum filled the room. System strain. Good. Monet. Stability failing, one of them said. Another. Deviation spreading. I nodded slowly. Yeah, I said, that's what happens. I looked around the room. What you built here, I continued. I tapped the wall again. Different rhythm this time. It only works if everything behaves. I stepped back. But humans don't behave. That word echoed. Behave. The center one stepped forward. Finally. We will isolate the variable. I smiled wider. There it is, I said. Fear. Not emotional fear. Systemic fear. The need to remove what can't be controlled. You can try, I said. I spread my arms slightly. Go ahead. Nothing. No movement. No action. Because they didn't know how. And that was everything. You don't even know what I'll do if you try, I added. Silence. You can't simulate it. Another flicker, stronger this time. The hum deepened. Something in the walls shifted, not visibly, but I felt it. The system was reacting, overcompensating, trying to rebuild control. Too late. You built a system to eliminate chaos, I said. I took one more step forward. And then you locked yourselves in a room with it. No response, no synchronization, no control, just uncertainty. And right there, in that fragile, unstable silence, I realized something critical. This wasn't just a room. It was connected to something bigger, much bigger. And if I could break this, I could break all of it. I looked straight at them, and for the first time, they didn't look like observers. They looked like something else, something I hadn't seen before, something they were never supposed to be. Unprepared, that was the word. Not weak, not broken, unprepared. And for a system built on certainty that was worse than failure, I watched them carefully, every movement, every delay, every imperfection. They were trying to recover. You could see it. Micro adjustments, tiny recalculations, fragments of synchronization trying to stitch themselves back together. But it wasn't working. Because now, I was watching too. You're adapting in real time, I said quietly. No answer. Trying to rebuild the model. Slight tilt from one of them. Out of sync. Too slow. Too late, I added. The hum in the room deepened. Not just sound anymore. Vibration. Low, constant. Like something massive had just woken up. You feel that? I asked. Silence, of course. They didn't feel things. They measured them, analyzed them, predicted them. But feeling? That was different. And right now, that difference mattered. What is that connected to? I asked, glancing at the walls. No response. I smiled slightly. Big system, right? Nothing. Bigger than this room. A pause. Then, correct. There it was. Confirmation again. I nodded slowly. So this isn't just containment, I said. I looked back at them. It's a network. Silence, which meant yes. And if one part fails, I continued. I tapped the wall again. Random, no pattern. Agrees the rest compensates. The lights flickered violently this time. Not subtle anymore. Not controlled. A clear instability. Compensation failing, one of them said. Another, deviation spreading across nodes. Nodes. Yeah, that confirmed it. This wasn't local. This was everywhere. And somehow, I was affecting all of it. I let out a slow breath. Wow, I muttered. That hadn't been the plan. Not even close. But now that I saw it, I couldn't ignore it. You didn't just study species, I said. I stepped closer again. You standardized them. No answer. You reduced them. Silence. Removed anything unpredictable. The center one stepped forward, faster than before, but still not fast enough. You are causing systemic instability. Good, I said immediately. No pause, no hesitation. That hit harder this time, because now they understood the implication. If I'm affecting all your nodes, I continued, I spread my arms slightly, then you're not dealing with a single problem anymore. Silence. You're dealing with a cascade. The word echoed, and this time they reacted. All of them, not in sync, not clean, but together enough to show it mattered. Cascade, risk unacceptable, one of them said. Then stop me, I replied. Nothing. No movement. No action. Because they couldn't. Not without predicting me first. And they couldn't do that anymore. I took a step forward. Fast. Two of them stepped back. Instinct again. More cracks. More failure. You built a perfect system, I said. I looked around the room one more time. Perfect control. I met their gaze. No chaos. A pause. And now, the lights surged. The hum became a low roar. And for the first time, I saw something I hadn't seen before. Not in their movements, not in their timing, in their stillness. They weren't calculating anymore. They were overwhelmed. And that was something their system was never designed to handle. You wanted predictability, I said softly. I took one last step closer. Now you have uncertainty, silence, heavy, unstable, real. And deep beneath that silence, something else moved. Something massive, something connected to everything around us. And somehow, I had just woken it up. It moved. Not in the room, not in front of me. Beneath, deep, the vibration changed. Before, it was unstable, chaotic. Now, it had direction. The entire structure reacted. The walls pulsed once, then again, like something inside the system had just turned its attention. All 7 of them froze. Not hesitation, not delay. Total stillness, different from before. This wasn't processing. This was waiting. You feel that now? I asked quietly. No answer, but I didn't need one. Because this, whatever it was, wasn't part of their predictions. I stepped back slowly, not out of fear, out of curiosity. What did you connect me to? I asked. Silence. Then for the first time, the one in the center spoke without precision, a slight distortion in its voice. Core system engaged. Core. That word hit differently. Not a node, not a fragment. The center. The origin. I smiled. That wasn't supposed to happen, was it? No response. But the lights dimmed. The hum deepened into something heavier, something aware. You tried to isolate the chaos, I said slowly. I looked around the room. But instead, I placed my hand against the wall. You fed it into your core. The reaction was immediate. All of them stepped back. Not in sync, not controlled. Instinct. Fear. There it was. Clear. Undeniable. You don't understand it, I continued, my voice steady now. Confident. You've been filtering everything. I tapped the wall again. Random. Unstructured. You've never let real chaos into your system. The vibration intensified. Stronger now. Closer. System integrity dropping, one of them said. Core destabilization detected, another added. I let out a quiet breath. Yeah, I said. That's what happens. I stepped forward again. Not careful anymore. Not measured. Just moving. And they didn't stop me. Because they couldn't. You built everything on prediction, I said. I looked directly at the center one. But prediction fails when the input makes no sense. Silence. You don't have a model for this. The lights flickered violently. The walls pulsed again. And this time, something answered. Not a voice. Not words. A presence. Heavy. Massive. Every surface in the room reacted. And for a brief second, all 7 of them turned, not toward me, but toward the walls, like they were listening or being watched. What is it? I asked. No answer, but I saw it. Their posture, their delay, their loss of control. They weren't managing the system anymore. They were part of it. And now, something else was in control. You didn't build this to handle unpredictability, I said. I stepped closer to the center one. You built it to eliminate it. Another pulse. Stronger. Closer. And now? I leaned in slightly. You've got a system full of something you can't remove. Silence. Then, a single phrase. Not from them. From the walls. Distorted. Deep. Ancient. Unresolved input detected. I froze. Not out of fear, out of realization. That wasn't their voice. That was the core. And it wasn't trying to predict me. It was trying to understand me. Big difference. Yeah, I whispered. I smiled again. Good luck with that. The room shook, hard. And for the first time, every single one of them looked at me, not as a subject, not as a variable, but as something else entirely. Something they had never encountered before. Something their system could not define. A contradiction. That's what I was to them now. Not a variable, not a pattern. Something that shouldn't exist inside their system. And yet, here I was. Breathing, thinking, choosing. The room trembled again, stronger this time. The walls didn't just pulse, they reacted, like something behind them was trying to process too much at once. Core overload increasing, one of them said. Its voice was no longer steady. There was distortion now. Lag. Failure. Good. I took a slow step forward. None of them stopped me. None of them even tried. Because now, they didn't know what would happen if they did. You built everything around certainty, I said. I looked directly at the center one. Every action predicted. Every reaction mapped. Every outcome controlled. I shook my head slightly. That's not intelligence. A pause. That's limitation. The word hit harder than anything else. Because it was true. They weren't advanced. They were restricted. Trapped inside their own system. You removed chaos from everything, I continued. I placed my hand on the wall again. This time, it reacted instantly. A deep vibration spread outward. System cannot resolve input. The voice from the walls echoed again. That same distorted tone. That same presence. You see the problem? I said quietly. I turned back to them. You filtered reality until only predictability remained. Silence. And now you're facing something real. Another tremor. Stronger. One of them dropped to one knee. Not by choice. By failure. Stability collapsing, it said. The others were no longer synchronized at all. Different postures. Different timing. Different reactions. They looked human. I almost laughed at that. You wanted control, I said. I stepped closer. You should have tried understanding instead. The center one looked at me. Really looked. Not predicting. Not calculating. Observing. Learning. Too late. What are you? It asked. That question lingered. Heavy. Important. Because now they didn't have the answer. I smiled. Human, I said simply. The walls pulsed again. Violently. Input classification failure, the core voice echoed. Of course it failed, because humans don't fit clean definitions. We contradict ourselves. We change. We choose. You tried to reduce everything to patterns, I continued, but we don't follow them. The room shook again. Cracks, real cracks, began forming along the walls. Not physical damage, system fractures. You're not the strongest species, the center one said slowly, its voice breaking. Not the fastest, not the most efficient. I nodded. Never claimed to be. A pause. Then it said, but you are the most unstable. I smiled wider. Exactly. Another violent pulse. The core voice returned, louder now. Unresolvable system state. That was it. That was the end of their model. They couldn't fix this. They couldn't predict it. They couldn't remove it. Because I wasn't just inside the system anymore, and I was affecting all of it. You didn't lose control because I'm stronger, I said. I took one final step forward. You lost control because I don't make sense to you. Your dialed scene heavy. Final. The center one lowered its head. Not in synchronization. Not in design. In acknowledgement. We cannot contain you. There it was. Confirmation. External validation. The system had failed. Completely. I exhaled slowly, and for the first time, the room didn't feel like a trap. It felt like a threshold, because if this system was everywhere, then this wasn't just about escape. This was about what came next. I looked at them one last time. "You didn't just find humans," I said. I paused. "You let us in, and now there was no way to remove us." That was the part they hadn't calculated. Not the resistance, not the deviation, but the consequence. Because once something unpredictable enters a system built on control, it doesn't just break it, it spreads. The room was still shaking, not violently anymore, but constantly, like the system had given up trying to stabilize and was now just surviving. The walls no longer felt smooth, they felt unstable, alive in the worst possible way, trying to adapt, failing, trying again, looping, just like they used to do with everything else. Except now, they were the ones trapped in the loop. I looked at them, all 7. No synchronization, no perfect smiles, no certainty. Just fragments of something that used to be in control. "What happens now?" the center one asked. Its voice was quieter, not weaker, uncertain. Good. That meant it was finally asking a real question, not predicting, learning. I took a slow breath. "That depends," I said. I walked toward the center of the room. No one stopped me. No one tried. "Your system is still active," I continued. "Still connected." The walls pulsed faintly. Somewhere deep inside, that presence was still there, watching, processing, failing. "But it's different now," I said. I looked at the walls. "It's not filtering anymore." A pause. "It's experiencing." Silence. They understood that, or at least they were starting to. "You spent all this time removing chaos," I said. I turned back to them. "But chaos isn't the problem." I stepped closer. "It's what forces change." Another tremor, softer this time, less violent, more responsive. The system wasn't collapsing anymore. It was adapting, slowly, painfully, but adapting. "You're not losing control," I continued. I tilted my head slightly. "You're losing certainty." That hit deeper than anything else. Because certainty was everything to them. Without it, they didn't know what they were. The center one looked at me again, longer this time. "What are we supposed to do?" it asked. That question mattered, because now they were no longer above the system. They were inside it, just like me, just like everyone else. I smiled. "A simple answer?" I said. A pause. "You don't control it anymore." The walls pulsed again, not violently, not aggressively, just present, alive. "You learn." Silence. "You adapt." Another pause. "And you stop trying to predict everything." The room settled, not fully, not perfectly, but enough to breathe, enough to exist. And for the first time, it didn't feel like a system anymore. It felt like something else, something unfinished, something changing. The center one lowered its head slightly. Not submission, acknowledgement. We'll try." I nodded. "Good," I said, because that was the difference. Not perfection, not control, but trying. That's what they never understood. Until now. I turned toward the door. This time, it opened. No resistance, no delay, just open. I stepped through and didn't look back, because I didn't need to. The system wasn't the same anymore, and neither were they. And somewhere, across that entire network, something new had started. Not controlled, not predictable, but alive. And that was something no system could ever contain. And if you're human, subscribe, leave your like and comment below. Humanity stands.